He can't do it. The roots don't produce the fruit. But the roots are absolutely necessary for everything necessary for the fruit to be produced. Fair? All right, everybody tracking now? I sound like Paul a little bit now, doing some circular reasoning. All right, with all that, let me give you another perspective back to this, and I'm going to need my scribe here in a minute. But let me see where I've covered this. Oh, I do have one more thing. Because here's the cool thing with that picture. Y'all can just remember it. I'm not going to turn that back around. Is in the way he's designed this for you and through you to use you and to choose you. The tree goes through everything. The tree goes through the rain. The tree goes through the wind. The tree goes through the dry and the drought. The tree goes through the storm. And he'll use the storm to strengthen the tree. He'll use the dry to extend the roots even farther, that you may draw from him even more in your life, in your process. The fruit's just seasonal. It's here and there. It'll be gone. And God will determine what he does with that. That's his business. But he'll take the tree through everything necessary for the tree to produce what he desires for it to produce. So don't think that, oh, just God using me is easy and it's fun. No, sometimes it's going to be expensive. It's going to be painful. It's going to get you up at 7:30 in the morning out on a 13-degree morning to haul somebody out of a ditch that you don't even know. Okay, cool. We can do that. But know that he's allowed to take you through that. Because he is your root and he is your foundation. He is the one that Psalms 139 says, hems you in the front, hems you in the back, and he is the one who holds you tight. He is the one that sustains you wherever you go, height, depth, width, whatever. He's there. He's there. So cry out to him, what do you need when you need it? Now with that in mind, let's do this. Back to John 15. And we're going to start at the beginning of John 15. And we're going to do this quickly, but this is where you get to preach to yourselves for a minute, if you would. John 15. Now, my tree thing is called a what? It's an analogy, right? You said allegory?
No, you said
Metaphor. It's a metaphor? Metaphor. I'm not really good at English. Anyway, all right. So I'm just going to say my metaphor is not better than Jesus's, and I'm not trying to trump Jesus, because Jesus gives a metaphor next. And his is probably better, but he puts it in a different situation. And what he says is this: I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no, what? Fruit. While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, which is what? A cutting back, or a shaping, or a molding, or a painful thing sometimes. You have to surrender yourself to the pruning of God in order to be fruitful as he desires you to be fruitful. It might be painful, but it might be necessary for God to do for you through you what he desires to do, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the words I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. All right, who's my scribe? Oh, she's moving. Excellent. All right, I got one. So let me ask you this question, because remain is just kind of another word for connected, right? So you want to remain in, you want to stay connected, you want to stay connected to the vine, you want to stay connected to the roots, you want to stay connected, and there's life. And I draw all this out a little bit because Scripture does it so much too. He talks about Israel being a branch, and we were grafted in. That means that thing was cut off, and then we were placed in the middle of it. Now both Israel and us get to grow together from this root of what God has placed in his creation through his word and through Jesus Christ. It talks about these things a lot in Scripture. But let me ask you a question, and let's see if we can draw from really practical, okay? How do you remain connected to your spouse? And you're just going to write down these words, and maybe a bunch of them so they don't have to be huge. How do you remain connected to your spouse? Communication. Positive communication or yelling and screaming?
Both.
The correct answer would be
Yeah. So we'll put up a plus connection. Plus, there you go. Communication. Because it needs to be in the right direction, right? It's not just communication. You may talk about the dog, you may talk about the kids, and your marriage fall apart. You may just come home and talk about family and struggles and heartache, and your marriage not succeed. You can talk all day long and it not connect you to your spouse. But positive connection is necessary to remain connected to your spouse. Okay? Positive communication. What else?
Time together.
Time, okay? Time together. Again, in a positive direction. It may have some struggles in that become positive, but it's with a purpose. It's not just time, and this isn't a marriage seminar, but it's not just time in general. Because again, you can sit in the same room. I remember the day, first time we ever saw, and you were there, when my parents emailed each other from one love seat to the other love seat. What is going on here? Appreciate your technology, but no, not so good. All right, what else?
Kids.
Kids, okay? Kids connect you, okay? Good kids connect you. No, I'm kidding. Bad kids will connect you as much as anything, because you need a united force to accomplish the task, which is raise good kids. So kids, yes.
Listening to God.
What?
Listening to God.
Listening to God. Fantastic, okay? Listening to God. Allowing God to be in the center of your marriage. Allowing God to determine how in your marriage you do finances, how you do your date nights, how you do your vacations and time off, how you spend your energy, what jobs you do. Okay? So yes, Addison. Inviting God into that is a huge part of being connected. And really what they'll say a lot of times for those of you who aren't married yet, okay, we'll stay right here. Is when you found the right spouse, it's like you're traveling your own individual roads, but they're going in the exact same direction. And if you can find that person who is already in the relationship with God, that person who already has the same values, that person who already has some of the same ambitions or whatever desires, then you will find someone that you can walk with in that process. If you've got people going in opposite directions all the time, you're not going to survive. All right, let's skip off of that for the fun of this. Let's go to another one. How do you remain connected to your job? You don't have to write job. You're going to just keep adding to the list. How do you remain connected to your job? Show up. Absolutely, right? Fastest, no call, no show, man. You get 3 of those, you're out. Just about any job nowadays because it happens all the time. All right, how else do you stay connected to your job? Watch your attitude. Okay.
That's a good one.
Listening. Okay. Listening/learning. Doing what you were instructed to do at your job. Well, one of the things, we'll come back to that. One of the things that I constantly told my children that I'm now telling my grandchild, 2 of those things. One is, that's a tool, not a toy. So don't use the tool as a toy. It's not. The remote is not a toy. It's a tool. Let go of it. But secondly is, if you're not doing what I ask you to do, then you are not helping. Because they'd all walk in the room going, I want to help, I want to help, I want to help. Eventually it came to, but if you're not doing what I ask you to do, then you are not helping. It's important to do what you've been asked to do with a positive attitude. Okay, loyalty. So commitment within that. Addison? Listening to your boss. Fantastic. That's very, very wise. Very wise. Okay? How else do you stay connected with your job? Respect. Okay? Constantly be learning and developing in that direction. It's a good way. It's a way to advance in your job in that process as well. Okay? What? You got one more? Servant attitude. We can put that in with positive and servant attitude. Because it comes back to that whole thing with authority where they're in authority, you're not. Do what they ask you to do, unless it's illegal, immoral. Seems like there's a third one. But anyway, so let me ask you this. We're going to transition to another way. How do you stay connected to your kids? If you have kids, how do you stay connected to your kids? You don't have kids. Time.
But she has
Okay.
good answers.
I know, Addison. You've been fantastic. What do you have? Are you just answering from what Eric tells you?
No, I think she can answer from a
No,
kid
I'm kidding.
perspective.
How do you stay connected to your kids? I'm just teasing you.
How do you like your parents to stay connected to you?
Say
Okay?
Bingo.
Okay? Respect, again, within that context.
Yeah.
Communication, again, in a positive direction.
Yeah.
I have taught, and I'll throw this out, it's not again a parenting seminar, but I'll throw this out because we now have a child who has a child. I was like, listen, there's two parts to discipline. Part number one is you got to discipline the behavior. Part number two is you got to mend the relationship. You've got to discipline the behavior because it's for their good that you're disciplining them. But there are times that you have to follow up after the discipline of the behavior to mend the relationship. If you don't do both, you're going to have a child who doesn't want to listen to what you have to say. But if you'll do both, you'll stay connected. I can't tell you how many times I had to come down on a youth as a youth minister. Hard. 3 or 4 of them. And then they followed me around the rest of the day. Like, why? I just yelled at you. I just fussed. But they wanted and needed somebody who would care enough to care about them in that situation. They didn't want to leave that connection. Does that make sense? Okay. Kids. Anybody else on kids? How do you stay connected with your kids?
Time.
Time, we already have that one. Did it get written down? Time? Patience. Huge. Huge. All right.
That goes for all three.
Yes, okay. Goes for all three. All right, let's come for a couple. I got a couple more, and then we're wrapping up as you're preaching, so you're the ones who are going along at this point in time. All right, how do you stay connected to your friends?
Contact, communication.
Okay? Share, okay. Vulnerability, honesty, those are bigger words than share, but that's being real with people. Part of mine is I've got to play. I'll tell you, I love you and I will minister with you and do whatever. But one of the things that defines a friend for me is that we play together. That we play. Now that may be around a Jeep, that may be on a mountain road or maybe whatever, but we do something more than just rub shoulders on a task. There's play involved. Okay? Loyalty. Okay? Let me ask you one last one that this guy this morning wished he had known. How do you stay connected to the road? Stay awake, stay alert. Let's use alert as a good word. How do you stay connected to the road?
Prudence. Driving.
Reasonable and prudent, okay?
Obedience.
Obedience, follow the laws. Don't scream. I don't know that one. Shouldn't you follow the road? I mean, wouldn't that be important to the connection to the road? Is that you actually follow the road?
Stay grounded.
Stay grounded, stay connected, literally, figuratively, whatever, follow. Okay. I did all that for a purpose. Thank you, Dan. How do you stay connected to Christ? It's right there. How do you remain in Him? It's all the above. So if you're going to remain in Him, and Him in you, and you're going to produce fruit, these are necessary. They're not just suggestions, just like in marriage, not wrecking your car or your kids. They're necessary. Because here's what he says in the remainder of this chapter. I am the vine. You're the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned.